inviting our next speaker. He is the EVP of Vodafone Idea, Planning and Engineering, and is responsible for network design, planning, and strategy for core, cloud, data center, and enterprise application. He's been a part of the Indian telecom industry for over 25 years and has been on both sides of the coin, the operator and the vendor community. Let's put our hands together and welcome our next speaker, Mr. Gulshan Khurana, Executive Vice President, Vodafone Idea.
So from Vish, your presentation, what I could see is that you want telcos to succeed and you're offering full support for that. Thank you for that. That's the biggest takeaway for me from your presentation. So good morning. Thank you for inviting me for this session, and really good to hear your views, Randeep, Vish, so far fantastic. I think from a telco perspective, Randeep gave an outside-in view on how market sees us as telcos, how do we provide services. I'll complement that to little going from inside out now, because he spoke very well on how market expects us to behave and how do we offer services to the market. From inside out view, I think when the 5G discussion started with release 15, release 16, release 17, the three pillars that were envisaged were that we'll have enhanced mobile broadband, broadband communication to consumers with very high speed, URLLC, which not only means low latency, but also reliable latency. So reliable network with the low latency, so that you have an operation happening on a remote fashion and suddenly you cannot say, oops, something went wrong. Third was multitude of devices by way of IoT. Not only humans talk to humans, humans will talk to machines, machines will talk to machines. And hence, we'll have a homogeneous environment wherein humans, machines will all talk to each other, probably giving a more efficient lifestyle to consumers. This was the three pillars that we started with. And how do we achieve this was magical. We introduced new spectrum, saying that, okay, new spectrum bands need to come in. The spectrum need to be wider so that we have more data to be punched in. This is regarding how do we handle EMBB, for example. But ultimate problem was also how do we make it more efficient, more low latency, more reliable, and multitude of devices. So we thought of a flat architecture, saying that network communication partners do not have to consume tens of devices, tens of network servers, tens of elements in the network, and make it a little more flatter. Let's make it more open. Let's introduce HTTP, for example, JSON, for example. Let's open up APIs for others to consume services, and hence a complete shift from the way we handled broadband. 4G was all about broadband. So how do we move from a broadband environment to a more inclusive, consumer-oriented environment? And hence we made these three pillars. I mean, globally, we all made these three pillars saying that broadband, latency, and multitude of devices. Now, how was this realized by technology functions? And what use cases were envisaged? Randeep talked elaborately about fixed wireless access. Probably fixed wireless access will be seen as a quick, easy, and cheaper way to give broadband to a consumer who consumes not only 29, 30 GB a month, but consumes 400, 500 GB a month. So 4G was kind of sufficient for me. Watching my 50-inch HD content on a TV with a hotspot on the 4G phone also was okay. But then fixed wireless access gives me services to the tune of 300, 400 GB a month, which probably home broadband gives. So this was envisaged, okay, this should happen that way. But the problem is that, again, 5G has a limited spectrum. So if we have 10, 15, 20 consumers, on average consuming 100, 200 Mbps on a broadband, home broadband, then I'll have one day limitation on spectrum, and I'll have to go back to my old primitive days of providing, fiber connectivity. Ultimately, that will happen. So from my angle, I think fixed wireless access is fantastic. It gives you quick, easy, cheaper way of communicating to a consumer. I do not need to worry about right of way for a fiber. I do not need to worry about filing OTDR when a fiber cut happens, etc. And hence, it becomes a fantastic way to offer consumers broadband in a quicker fashion. 5G also gave an opportunity. See, 80% of networks on globe today on 5G are all NSA. Only 20% are based on SA, which are actual flat architecture, providing HTTP and APIs openness, etc. So these 80% networks also give an opportunity as an outcome to have a spectrum optimization done in ways of converging both the spectrum, because I'm talking to two base stations at the same time. I use 4G spectrum, I use 5G spectrum, I use capabilities of both the base stations. And hence that was beautiful, which 5G probably will have only one connection happening to 5G and hence probably a little more efficiency brought into NSA, talking in terms of inside out of the network. We talked about slicing. I've seen network operators asking for slicing in such a huge fashion when spectrum is available to have 5 or 6 slices. I can have a broadband, cheaper broadband. I can have a dedicated broadband for consumers who pay more, platinum subscribers. I could have first responders on emergency situations. I can have a complete broadband running on one slice, etc. Fantastic approach. But then we again need to think about how much spectrum is available. Can I dedicate a section of my spectrum to a consumer segment, which probably will not be keeping it busy for the whole day, right? We also had a beautiful concept of wireline wireless merger happening for the first time with 5G coming in. So I've seen cases wherein our platform providers like Cisco itself coming to us saying that, look, we have a wireline BNG available to you. Can I build a tunnel on GRE? Can I build S111 interface to talk to your mobility control elements and have the same equipment serving your wireless as well? So I think collectively, this was a beautiful concept we're bringing in all together. But did it all happen? We saw only 20% networks going to SA. We had a problem with economics. The use cases were not picking up. We had use cases like private 5G, for example. Somebody spoke about private 5G right now. Did really pick up. The debate happening was that, is it okay to have a private network in my premise with my cost, with my security, versus if I use the captive network of a telco? Now, what is the balance to be seen? Do I have enough throughput? Do I have enough throughput running from my private 5G consumption area to the data center of the telco? Security, for example. Well, spectrum, for example. Do I have enough spectrum to cater to my private 5G needs? So these are debates happening. So it's not a magical portion that it will happen in one day, but I think the bedrock is solid. The bedrock in technology has given us now a solution possibility that, look, this is all possible. Then suddenly came 5G plus, and I'm happy to I keep reading about 5G plus and how it is shaping up. The most interesting thing that 5G plus is bringing on ground is that it is moving the focus away from technology for a consumer to an experience for a consumer. So the pillars of URLLC, EMBB, MIoT are not being talked about. The pillars being talked about in 5G Advanced now are excellence, extension, expansion. How do I merge my terrestrial network with non-terrestrial network? How do I give real-time communication which can handle drones, for example, real-time financial transactions? So I think 5G Advanced will bring in a lot more on top of 5G. So the topic while I was discussing was, where do we go from 5G? So 5G Advanced would be, so 5G Advanced is not actually going to change dramatic way the network architecture happens. Architecture would remain same. Probably we'll have more AI built intent-based networks coming in. Probably we'll have more data insight-driven things happening in. So when you see what advantages 5G plus or 5G itself is bringing in is, I always divide into two portions. One is outward looking towards consumers. A consumer probably can have a better understanding on what coverage, what consumption patterns they will have, when do they roam, how do they open up their international roaming packages, how do they consume more roaming data, etc., etc., etc. From an operator or a telco, inside-out approach is that, how do I make my networks more optimized? Now we talk about 5G, for example, start talking about with a flat architecture saying, oh, we'll have a very operation efficiency way of upgrading the networks now. We'll have a CI/CD engine coming in. But is it happening today? No. Not to that extent that we want to. Because we are not at the stage wherein I have the complete flat architecture. I still have an NSA, which is an old way of handling the network in a 4G fashion, but fooling the network saying, okay, you have a new base station, that's a 5G base station, but kindly keep working the same way. So I think these things will evolve over time. We have been a little more excited about this, saying that, okay, it is there today, it's not there today, will take some time, but I think the evolution path is good. The bedrock has been laid by 5G. We'll talk about 6G, we'll talk about 6G plus as well, but I think 5G plus has laid a good bedrock for us to move forward. While I was collecting my thoughts, let's talk a few more use cases now. Let's say industrial use cases. Now, why do I need an edge cloud for industry use case? Vish talked about hundreds of megabytes or gigabytes of data being produced by an industrial application. Is it required to be taken to a telco's environment? No, it doesn't need to be. I probably will have, we had a real use case wherein an industrial conglomerate came to us saying that I have a test jig which takes about 100 pictures in a second of a built-up product from all angles to see whether the product is finished good is right or not. 100 pictures in a second. Now, this might on a HD take a lot of bandwidth for coming to my data center wherein I do an application on top of it and take a decision and send the result back. Now, do I really need it? No. So the solution is edge. We put an edge cloud saying that, look, the entire application sits on top of it. Only the control channels which are required to make your network run, security to be implemented probably, needs to be coming back to me. Otherwise, I don't need this entire channel to be established towards me and coming back to you with a lot of data to be unnecessarily transport it across. I might have a high definition video camera at my house. Do I need to see all the videos all the day? No. I also only need to see when something happens, which could be 5 seconds in a year. So do you need to bring all the data back to my data center? No, probably no. I'll need to probably put a sensor saying that, okay, if something happens, only that instant, 5 minutes minus, 5 minutes plus should be brought to me, and then I can have analysis on top of it. So I think these kind of applications are abundant. We are a land which is hungry on data. We recently did an expansion on our spectrum in thousands of base stations, and we certainly saw that the consumption has gone up, drastically up, tremendously up. So we are hungry. Applications are existing. Networks are ready. Technology is ready. The only bottleneck which I see today is that economics also has to make the right sense. With a country with 180, 190, 200 rupees ARPU, investing money into the network with 5G, 5G plus, and then probably going to the market and saying, we are ready with all the use cases, does it make really sense? So for me, I think from my personal angle, not speaking from company's perspective, there are 3 things that will drive this innovation further. One is the consumer's immersive experience going from 5G ahead. Now, in all the IMCs and MWCs I've been seeing for the last 5 years, we have all the telcos and OEMs and partners and platform providers have AR, VR booths. But do we really see an AR, VR application today on the ground which can be used by a consumer? Probably not. It's good for demonstration of technology, but that's still missing. So I think that'll make technology evolve. Second is the industrial applications. As I mentioned earlier, industrial applications are the ones which will drive the technology evolution further. A human has a limited capability to absorb content. Now, humans could do an immersive experience. I could visit a museum. I could visit kind of a stage show or a music event or a concert sitting in my house wearing my AR, VR glasses. That's fine. So humans can have a homogeneous environment wherein I indulge into events which are far away from me, which are perceived as high content consuming events, but I can do it from my home. But there's a limit to a human's perceivable content absorption. So industries are the ones I think will be driving. We heard about Industry 2 when we started with 4G. Today we are at Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 being talked about. And I've seen examples wherein a company from Singapore came to us saying that, look, kindly build an automated environment for me, wherein the entire industry process is automated, right from the entry of an employee in the company. We take a biometric, which is not a physical thumbprint or something. It's just a consumer walks through, employee walks through. We take his attendance, we measure the temperature in the body, and we mark attendance. Right from that way to goods movement, quality of goods, logistics, how do we distribute equipment to warehouse, where do my customer complaints come in, the entire piece has to be automated. So my personal feeling is that industry requirements will drive the technology evolution for the next 5-6 years now. So number 3, so first was a consumer's immersive experience. How the consumer does an immersive experience, take it away from only human communication to a human-machine communication, to a human immersive experience with new use cases. Number 2 is industries. How do they behave? How do they drive my evolution and make me work on new use cases? Do I provide edge to them? Do I give a private network to them? Do I make a complete automated view to them? The third, which is important, is that we have been talking about artificial intelligence, ML learning, saying that, okay, networks are going to be learning by themselves. They're going to be self-provisioned. They're going to be self-healing. They're going to be intent-based networks. They're going to be insight, data-driven networks. That's the third thing which will drive it. Because efficiency on network handling. I remember, this is 30 years of your publication. We all have been almost 30 years in industry since mobility started in India. I remember the first network which we made, we had, when I wrote on the board what number of elements we have, we had 4 or 5 elements. We had a MSC, we had a HLR, and a base station. So that was the only thing. But today if I start writing, there'll be 300 elements in network, right from firewalling to AAAs to BNGs to P gateways to MMEs. So we have, that complexity needs to be resolved by inward-looking mechanism, which will be brought in by an operational efficiency by introducing automation in the network. That's very, very important. Because consumer being offered services, spectrum being utilized, service being available all the time, slices being given to consumers to access services, ubiquitous services, high quality services, inward looking onto network, there has to be a lot of automation drive which will happen from our partners, which will help us bring in operational efficiency. And the fourth one, which is most important, is the economics has to work in favor to bring it all on ground. So consumer experience, immersive, industrial driving, operational efficiency, and the economics of it. It all has to play hand in hand to bring these things on ground so that we can have a win-win for all of us, for a consumer, for a telco, for OEM, for partners. I think these are important elements that we'll have in the evolution from 5G to 5G plus and going forward. Am I good on time?
Yeah, about a
Right,
minute.
I'm on time.
So we done?
I'm done. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Anybody with questions? Yeah, just present the mic to the gentleman, please.
Gulshan, you really twisted how we started the discussion by saying, let's look at NSA, let's look at networks, let's look at the business model. And you shared these three. Vish said that if you look at European operators, you have about 30% of the revenue coming from not the consumer, but the enterprise side. Could you share with us over the next 12 months, where do you see with Vodafone your enterprise revenue increasing, considering the business model limitations and the NSA network you're deploying?
I say in the end that let's keep it to a technology forum. Revenues, share of revenue. I can talk about use case that we're working on enterprise, but we cannot talk about the numbers or the share of numbers. So not Vodafone Idea, but every operator, especially in India, is working on 2 or 3 prominent use cases. Last year was very, very hot on private networks. Everybody was gung-ho, let's do private network for ports. So that's one thing. Companies acquired companies. HP is sitting here, they acquired a large company which was specializing into private 5G, for example. They also acquired now a routing company as well. So this was a very hot cake being sold. This year it's more about smart meters, as Randeep said, that we have smart meters not only for electricity, because electricity still has a volume of money coming in. So per meter generates revenue. Water meters don't generate that much revenue, but still that's coming in because the operational efficiency of a smart meter is much higher than a consumer or an employee visiting and doing that. So third use case which talk about, so private networks, which is FWA now, which is the most hot topic today. The reason for FWA to become so hot today is multifold. One is that the laying fiber to last mile is not an easy job in India. We are so densely populated, places like Delhi, Mumbai, probably 1 kilometer of ROW runs into lakhs of rupees. I'll not quote the number exactly, but it runs into lakhs of rupees. And then subsequently, no matter how much 2-cut not out, 3-cut not out, 4-cut not out I build, I see problems that fibers are being cut and then problem happens. So last mile serving with radio to a tune of 300 gig, 400 gig a consumer a month is what is a dream for us. That's why FWA has become so hot today. Okay, so, but it's not a end solution saying we'll cover entire India with FWA and say okay everybody use it, because there's a limited spectrum. So once you have a base station serving 20, 30, 40 consumers, you'll have to say thank you. We'll have to bring in now fiber here because consumer base is higher and spectrum is limited. So I think these 3 top cases on enterprise side, and fourth is industrial. We had a large number of industries coming to us saying that, look, we need to build a private 5G first. The first question which I think in my mind is that, is it required to have a private 5G or do I need to build a separate agnostic section for you? So I'll quote one example, very interesting example. There were 2 or 3 SMEs which came to us saying that, look, we need to have a solution. Now these SMEs are like 10, 20 crore worth of revenue per year. Now if you tell them that I'll have a 20 crore worth of a private network built for you, they'll go for a toss. So we built a model saying that, okay, let's have an agnostic 5G, private 5G solution which serves consumer A, consumer B, and consumer C. While they are isolated from each other, they don't need to see. The control plane lies with me. They have their security, they have their own firewalls, they have databases. They can put their AI engine on top of it. But let's build an agnostic AI-based private 5G for them. So these are 3 or 4 use cases that I think are most common right now. We'll keep working on them. But as I said, 5G has laid a good bedrock for reliable, low latency, high throughput networks. They can be used with AI-powered engines or learning by themselves or by predictive analysis to evolve to more use cases. So that is yet to be seen. We'll probably see that in next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But uptake of 5G has been faster than uptake of 4G globally. That's for sure. So if you see broadband versus broadband comparison, 5G has been a fantastic technology. Uptake was 3 times higher than what it on 4G, which happened about 10 years back.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other question? We have the gentleman on that table, please.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Khurana. You had a very elaborate technical discussion on the 4G and 5G network and the consumer interaction you have spoken about. Now, the basic reality from the consumer side is that even the call getting is a difficult proposition. Now, we are talking about 5G and 6G and all that, even 4G, because India 70% is on the rural side. Here now sitting here in this Holiday Inn at the basement, I am not getting the internet or I am not getting any calls. So talk about 100 kilometers, if you go out of Delhi, we are not getting any network. And Vodafone used to be once upon a it the hot cakes used to sell. And Idea, I have used Idea, I have used Vodafone. And you know, we are talking about 5G, 6G and all that on the various platforms. But the ground reality is that network problem is persist from east to west, north to south. I would like to have your comments on that. Thank you.
So what's your question? Comment is fine, fantastic. What's the question?
Hello?
So what's your question?
The question is that we have to concentrate on the network availability to the consumer or the last line standing in the last
I absolutely agree with you.
line. Yeah, this
I
is my
absolutely
question.
agree with you. Every telco, every operator has to concentrate on the last mile availability of service to a consumer. I fully agree with you. Thank you, but like, we can have a discussion around 3:15 when we are in little leisure. So let's talk technology. If you have any questions, technology, I'm engineering and planning head, so we can. Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you so much, sir. We'll take it offline due to slightly time constraint, but thank you to the audience as well. And may I invite Mr. Vish Iyer again, please, on stage to present a memento of our appreciation to Mr. Khurana.